The underworld has never disappeared. It has only adapted. In the shadowed corners of American cities, behind the glow of neon signs and the hum of bustling streets, a different kind of power still reigns. These are the families that shaped history with whispers in backrooms, deals sealed with a nod, and betrayals written in blood. From the ruthless streets of New York to the silent corridors of power in Chicago and beyond, their influence lingers like smoke curling from a lit cigar. Some rose through loyalty, others through fear, but none without leaving behind a legacy of secrets, ambition, and violence. You may think their time has passed. You'd be wrong. These are the crime families that still hold the keys to the underworld. Once you step inside, there's no turning back. Bonanno crime family. The Bonanno crime family, one of the infamous 5 families of the New York Mafia, has a long and tumultuous history dating back to the early 1900s. Founded by Joseph Bonanno, the family quickly rose to power in the Prohibition era, capitalizing on illegal liquor distribution, extortion, and racketeering. Unlike the other families, the Bonannos maintained a reputation for secrecy and discipline under Bonanno's leadership. However, internal conflicts and government pressure led to a series of betrayals, assassinations, and law enforcement crackdowns that would shake the organization to its core. In the 1960s, Joseph Bonanno was forced into exile after an alleged plot to overthrow other mob bosses, an event later referred to as the Banana War. The power vacuum and leadership struggles weakened the family, making them the first of the 5 families to be expelled from the Mafia Commission. The 1980s saw a further decline when underboss Salvatore, good-looking Sal Vitale, and acting boss Joseph Massino were convicted, leading to an unprecedented series of turncoats. Massino, who was once considered one of the most powerful mafia bosses, became the first official boss of a New York crime family to become a government witness. His cooperation led to numerous convictions of high-ranking members, further crippling the family. Despite these setbacks, the Bonanno family continues to operate today, engaging in crimes such as loan sharking, gambling, and narcotics trafficking. Law enforcement crackdowns have made operations more discreet, but the family remains active, adapting to modern criminal enterprises, including cybercrime. Though it lacks the power it once had, the Bonanno crime family still holds influence in New York's underworld, surviving multiple waves of arrests and betrayals. Colombo crime family. The Colombo crime family, another of New York's 5 families, has a history marked by leadership struggles and bloody internal wars. Originally founded by Joe Profaci in the 1920s, the family built its wealth through illegal enterprises such as loan sharking, extortion, and drug trafficking. Profaci ruled with an iron fist, demanding tributes from his underlings, which led to discontent within the ranks. This dissatisfaction ultimately sparked the First Colombo War in the 1960s, a violent power struggle that ended when Joseph Colombo seized control. Colombo was unique among mob bosses, as he openly courted public attention, founding the Italian-American Civil Rights League to challenge the media's negative portrayal of Italians. His public persona, however, made him a target. In 1971, he was shot at a rally, leaving him incapacitated and triggering another power struggle. This led to the rise of Carmine Persico, one of the most controversial leaders in mafia history. Persico maintained power from prison for decades, despite multiple coup attempts from within the family. The third and most violent Colombo War occurred in the early 1990s, when a faction led by Victor Orena attempted to overthrow Persico's loyalists. This internal conflict resulted in numerous murders and law enforcement intervention, leaving the family weakened. Many members were arrested or flipped, dealing a devastating blow. However, the Colombo family managed to survive, though in a diminished capacity. In recent years, they have been linked to financial crimes, construction fraud, and online gambling operations, adapting to the modern world of organized crime. While not as powerful as in their heyday, the Colombo family continues to operate, albeit with a lower profile, showing the mafia's ability to endure even through its most turbulent times. Gambino crime family. The Gambino crime family is one of the most powerful and historically significant of the 5 families of the New York Mafia. It traces its origins to the early 1900s, but it was in 1957, under the leadership of Carlo Gambino, that the family solidified its dominance. Gambino was known for his strategic mind and ability to avoid law enforcement scrutiny, leading the family into an era of prosperity through racketeering, extortion, loan sharking, gambling, and labor union control. His leadership set the foundation for the modern American mafia, and upon his death in 1976, the family's influence was unrivaled. However, the transition of power to Paul Castellano created internal resentment. Castellano, who preferred a business-like approach rather than street-level enforcement, alienated many within the organization. This discontent reached a climax in 1985 when John Gotti orchestrated Castellano's assassination outside Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan, seizing control of the family. Gotti's reign marked a shift towards media exposure, as he relished the spotlight, earning the nickname the Dapper Don for his flashy suits and charismatic personality. However, his brazen approach made him a prime target for law enforcement. In 1992, his underboss, Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, turned informant, leading to Gotti's conviction on multiple charges, including murder and racketeering. After Gotti's imprisonment, the family faced turmoil, but it managed to rebuild under the leadership of Domenico Cefalù and later Frank Calli. Calli was known for his low-profile leadership and ties to international criminal organizations, particularly in Sicily. His assassination in 2019, however, brought renewed attention to the family. Today, the Gambino family remains active, engaging in various criminal enterprises, including cyber fraud, drug trafficking, and traditional racketeering. Although law enforcement crackdowns have weakened its grip, the organization continues to operate with a more discreet and business-oriented approach, proving that the Gambino crime family is far from extinct. Genovese crime family. The Genovese crime family is considered the most powerful and sophisticated of the 5 families, known for its ability to maintain a low profile while exerting tremendous influence in organized crime. Its origins date back to the early 1900s, but it gained prominence under the leadership of Charles "Lucky" Luciano, the architect of the modern mafia structure. Luciano revolutionized organized crime by creating the Commission, a governing body to regulate mafia activities across the country, ensuring a balance of power among the families. After his deportation to Italy in the 1940s, the family continued to thrive under bosses like Frank Costello, who favored political and business connections over brute force. Costello's reign ended when a rival faction, led by Vito Genovese, attempted to assassinate him in 1957, leading to Genovese taking full control. Under his leadership, the family expanded its influence, solidifying its reputation for discipline and secrecy. Unlike the flamboyant Gambino and Gotti approach, the Genovese family avoided unnecessary media attention, which allowed them to operate under the radar. Even as law enforcement increased pressure on the mafia in the 1980s and 1990s, the Genovese family remained largely intact while other families suffered from high-profile arrests and informants. This was largely due to their boss of bosses structure, where the real power was often hidden behind a series of front bosses to shield leadership from legal repercussions. Vincent "Chin" Gigante, one of their most famous leaders, pretended to be mentally ill for years, wearing bathrobes in public and speaking incoherently to avoid prosecution. Despite his bizarre act, he ruled the family with an iron fist, until his conviction in the early 2000s. Today, the Genovese crime family continues to exert influence in various illegal operations, including construction fraud, labor racketeering, loan sharking, and gambling. They are considered the most stable and secretive of the five families, with a strict code of silence that has prevented the kind of widespread betrayals that have plagued other crime families. Their ability to adapt and operate quietly has allowed them to remain a dominant force in organized crime, proving that the Genovese crime family is still very much in business. Lucchese crime family. The Lucchese crime family is one of the five families of the New York Mafia and is known for its deadly efficiency, corruption in labor unions, and its involvement in some of the most notorious heists in history. The family was originally founded by Gaetano Tommy Galliano in the 1930s and later led to prominence by Tommy Lucchese, whose name the family still bears. Lucchese was a shrewd and disciplined leader who favored strategic alliances with politicians, law enforcement officials, and businessmen, allowing the family to thrive in construction, trucking, and garment industries. His influence extended beyond street-level crime, making the Lucchese family one of the most financially successful mafia groups in the U.S. After Lucchese's death in 1967, the family endured power struggles but remained strong, engaging in drug trafficking, extortion, and contract killings. By the 1980s, under the leadership of Anthony "Tony Ducks" Corallo, the Lucchese family became even more powerful, largely due to its involvement in the multi-million-dollar heist of the Lufthansa vault at JFK Airport in 1978, one of the largest cash robberies in U.S. history. The heist, later made famous in the movie Goodfellas, led to a series of murders to eliminate loose ends, solidifying the family's reputation for violence. However, law enforcement crackdowns in the late 1980s and early 1990s led to the imprisonment of many high-ranking members, including Corallo. The family suffered internal betrayals, with several underbosses turning informant. Despite these setbacks, the Lucchese family has remained active in the criminal underworld, adapting to modern organized crime tactics, including cyber fraud, healthcare scams, and labor racketeering. Today it operates with a lower profile, using front bosses and trusted associates to avoid drawing law enforcement attention. While its power has diminished from its peak, the Lucchese family remains a force in organized crime, with members deeply embedded in various industries that provide lucrative opportunities for illegal operations. Chicago Outfit. The Chicago Outfit, often simply referred to as the Outfit, is one of the most notorious organized crime syndicates in American history. Unlike the New York-based five families, the Chicago Outfit has operated as a single unified organization since its rise to power under Al Capone in the 1920s. Capone's rule during the Prohibition era turned Chicago into a battleground, with the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929 serving as a brutal reminder of the outfit's reach and ruthlessness. After Capone's imprisonment for tax evasion in the 1930s, the organization shifted towards a more low-profile and disciplined leadership style under Frank Nitti and later Paul, the Waiter, Ricca. Unlike the New York crime families, the outfit was highly centralized, with one leader controlling the entire organization, reducing the chances of internal conflicts. By the 1950s and 1960s, under Tony Accardo and Sam Giancana, the Chicago Outfit had expanded its operations beyond Illinois, controlling casinos in Las Vegas, labor unions, and even influencing national politics. Giancana's alleged ties to the CIA and his connections to the Kennedy family added to the outfit's mystique, fueling speculation about mafia involvement in U.S. history's most controversial events. However, the outfit faced increased scrutiny in the 1970s and 1980s, especially after government informants like Joseph "Joey Doves" Iupa and Frank the German Schweiz provided crucial information. The family secrets trial in 2007 further exposed the outfit's inner workings, leading to multiple life sentences for key figures. Despite these setbacks, the outfit has never been completely dismantled. Today it operates in a more discreet fashion, focusing on loan sharking, sports betting, labor racketeering, and white-collar crimes. While its influence has waned compared to its heyday, the Chicago outfit still holds power in the city's underworld, proving that even after a century of law enforcement efforts, organized crime in Chicago remains very much alive. Patriarcha crime family. The Patriarcha crime family, also known as the New England Mafia, is one of the most influential organized crime groups outside of New York, with deep roots in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and other parts of New England. The family was officially established in the 1930s, but rose to prominence under the leadership of Raymond L.S. Patriarcha, who took control in the 1950s and ruled with an iron fist until his death in 1984. Unlike the more flamboyant bosses of New York's five families, Patriarcha operated with ruthless efficiency, keeping a low profile while exerting significant influence over illegal gambling, loan sharking, extortion, and labor racketeering. He established a highly disciplined organization that maintained close ties with the New York Mafia while maintaining its autonomy in New England. Patriarcha's leadership was marked by his ability to control not only the criminal underworld, but also law enforcement and politicians, using bribery and corruption to protect the family's interests. Following his death, the family faced internal struggles and increased law enforcement pressure. Raymond Patriarcha Jr. took over but lacked the power and respect of his father, leading to instability within the organization. The 1990s were particularly devastating for the family, as several key members were arrested, and informants such as Vincent Fat Vinny Teresa and Robert Bobby DeLuca provided crucial testimony against the organization. In 1991, a massive federal crackdown, known as the RICO trials, led to the imprisonment of numerous high-ranking members, weakening the family's structure. Despite these setbacks, the Patriarcha crime family continued to operate, engaging in narcotics trafficking, bookmaking, and financial fraud. The 2000s saw a new wave of leadership attempting to modernize the organization, focusing on low-risk, high-reward crimes to avoid the attention of law enforcement. The family's influence in Boston, Providence, and other parts of New England has diminished over the years, but it still maintains a presence, with members and associates involved in various criminal enterprises. Law enforcement efforts have significantly hindered its operations, but like other mafia organizations, the Patriarcha family has adapted, keeping its structure intact and its activities as discreet as possible. While no longer the dominant force it once was, the New England Mafia continues to function, proving that organized crime in the region has not entirely disappeared. Philadelphia crime family. The Philadelphia crime family, also known as the Philly Mob or the Bruno Scarfo family, is one of the most volatile and violent mafia organizations in the United States. Its roots date back to the early 1900s, but the family truly rose to power under the leadership of Angelo Bruno in the 1950s. Bruno, known as the Gentle Don, preferred diplomacy over violence, focusing on traditional mafia rackets like loan sharking, gambling, and labor racketeering. He maintained close ties with New York's five families, ensuring stability in Philadelphia's underworld. However, his assassination in 1980 triggered a period of chaos that would define the family for decades. After Bruno's death, Nicodemo Little Nicky Scarfo took control, ushering in one of the bloodiest eras in mafia history. Unlike Bruno's diplomatic approach, Scarfo ruled with fear, ordering dozens of murders, including those of his own men, to maintain control. He expanded the family's operations into narcotics trafficking, which brought in huge profits but also increased law enforcement scrutiny. By the late 1980s, the FBI had gathered enough evidence to convict Scarfo and most of his inner circle, effectively dismantling the family's leadership. This power vacuum led to further infighting, as rival factions vied for control. The 1990s and 2000s saw multiple leadership changes, betrayals, and informants cooperating with the government. The family suffered a major blow when Joseph "Skinny Joey" Merlino, a charismatic but reckless leader, was convicted on racketeering charges. Although he maintained influence from prison, the organization continued to weaken. Despite this, the Philly mob has proven resilient. Today, the family still operates in loan sharking, illegal sports betting, and extortion, albeit at a reduced capacity. Law enforcement crackdowns and internal conflicts have significantly diminished its power, but remnants of the organization remain active. While no longer the feared powerhouse it once was, the Philadelphia crime family persists, adapting to modern organized crime methods and maintaining a presence in the city's underworld. The DeCavalcante crime family, often referred to as the real-life Sopranos, is one of the most notorious organized crime groups in New Jersey. Though not one of the five families, it has long operated under their influence, particularly that of the Genovese and Gambino families. The family's origins trace back to the early 20th century, but it was under the leadership of Simone DeCavalcante in the 1960s that the organization gained prominence. Known as Sam the Plumber, DeCavalcante was a shrewd and calculating leader who managed to keep the family's operations lucrative while avoiding unnecessary violence. The family engaged in traditional mafia activities, including loan sharking, extortion, gambling, and labor racketeering. Despite its relative obscurity compared to New York's crime families, the DeCavalcante family gained significant attention in the late 1990s and early 2000s due to law enforcement wiretaps that exposed their operations. The FBI obtained hours of recorded conversations that revealed the family's inner workings, disputes, and even plots to kill rival members. These recordings led to the conviction of multiple high-ranking members, including boss John Riggi and acting boss Vincent "Vinny Ocean" Palermo, who later became a government witness. His testimony led to the conviction of numerous mobsters, significantly weakening the organization. Though the family suffered major blows from law enforcement, it continues to operate in a diminished capacity. Today, it is involved in low-profile rackets, such as illegal gambling and online fraud, adapting to modern criminal enterprises. Unlike its heyday, the family no longer commands the same respect or fear as the New York Mafia, but it remains active, maintaining its presence in New Jersey's underworld. The DeCavalcante family's history serves as a testament to the changing nature of organized crime, where old-school mobsters must evolve or face extinction in the modern era. Detroit Partnership. The Detroit Partnership, also known as the Detroit Crime Family, is one of the most secretive and enduring organized crime groups in the United States. Unlike the more infamous New York and Chicago families, the Detroit Mafia has remained relatively low profile, which has contributed to its longevity. It was officially established in the early 20th century, with roots in the Sicilian Mafia and early Prohibition-era bootlegging operations. By the mid-20th century, the family was led by Joseph Zerilli, who built strong alliances with the national mafia network while keeping law enforcement at bay. Unlike other crime families that suffered from informants and internal wars, the Detroit Partnership has been remarkably stable. It has avoided major power struggles, thanks in part to its strict leadership structure and discipline. The family has been heavily involved in labor racketeering, loan sharking, illegal gambling, and extortion, particularly in the auto industry, which provided a steady stream of revenue for decades. Its influence extended beyond Detroit, reaching parts of Canada and the Midwest, making it one of the most well-connected crime syndicates outside of New York. Despite its success in avoiding the spotlight, the Detroit Partnership has not been immune to law enforcement crackdowns. The FBI has made multiple attempts to dismantle the organization, But unlike the more flamboyant crime families, Detroit's leadership has maintained a low profile, allowing it to persist while other mafia organizations have crumbled. Even with the decline of traditional organized crime, the Detroit Partnership continues to operate in the shadows, engaging in financial crimes, sports betting, and cyber-related fraud. It is one of the few mafia families that has successfully adapted to the modern world, proving that discretion and careful leadership are key to long-term survival in the world of organized crime.